targeting the main artery of Russia's economy. That's how President Joe Biden described the US decision to ban imports of Russian oil. Crude prices surged again after the announcement, which comes at a time when Americans were already battling rising fuel prices. The US imports only a small percentage of its oil from Russia, but the ban will likely push petrol prices even higher. Biden called it the cost of defending freedom. Meanwhile, in Europe, the EU has set out plans to end its dependence on Russian energy by 2030. It wants to end most of its imports of natural gas from Russia by the end of this year, but doing it will not be easy.
Russia is now openly threatening to cut off gas supplies to Europe completely. This would lead to enormous bottlenecks for the entire EU. Gas is primarily used to heat homes, in ovens in production processes, in power plants to produce electricity. A sudden supply stop would push up energy prices dramatically. Prices for oil and gas have already risen steeply. Consumers are feeling the pressure at the petrol pumps and on their gas bills. Before the Russian attack, a megawatt hour of gas cost 69 euros, already more expensive than consumers were used to. Since then, in just 2 weeks, the price of the EEX energy exchange has rocked to a record high of 335 euros. And the outlook is uncertain. No one knows whether Russia will make good on its threat and turn off the tap completely. The EU now wants to completely become independent of Russia. Repower EU is the name of its new strategy. At its core, diversifying energy suppliers and drawing more from renewable sources like solar and biogas.
Renewables give us the freedom to choose an energy source that is clean, cheap, reliable, and ours. And instead of continuing to fund fossil fuel imports and fund Russian oligarchs, renewables create new jobs here in Europe.
The EU wants to replace 2/3 of Russian gas imports by the end of the year, an ambitious target.
This will end our over-dependency and give us much-needed room to maneuver. 2/3 by the end of this year. It's hard, bloody hard, but it's possible if we're willing to go further and faster than we've done before.
The EU already has plans for its energy transition. But the war in Ukraine has officials startled, forcing them to make the switch far faster than previously thought possible.
Well, let's discuss Europe's energy plans further with Mike Waterson. He's an expert in energy and industrial economics at the University of Warwick in the UK. Thanks a lot for being with us. We just heard it described as bloody hard by the EU, the task that's ahead of it. How ambitious are these plans?
Well, they are very ambitious. And it is quite difficult to see how things will change so quickly. If I might, I would make maybe a diversion to talk about what happened in Germany when there was the decision following the Fukushima earthquake to close down 6 nuclear plants really quite quickly.
Yeah, that'll be done by the end of this year.
That will be that was managed quite well, partly through the fact that the system was integrated, but of course partly through Germany burning more coal and more lignite in particular in order to satisfy demand. So I think in the short term, that again is likely to be a strategy. In the longer term, what I didn't see in the plans is much mention of storage. Now, producing energy from renewables is a well-known technique, and Germany and the UK and various others, Denmark, have been increasing this a great deal, particularly wind, and in the south of Europe, solar. But none of these produce in the same way that gas does. They don't produce very flexibly, and they don't necessarily produce when you want it. And that's key for electricity.
Well, that is what begs the question, isn't it? So if
yes.
they can't be getting this natural gas from Russia, where is it coming from?
Yeah, so I think one of the things that's missing is plans for storage of energy, not necessarily storage of gas, but storage of energy once produced, electrical energy once produced, and that is that can be managed. There are various technologies, compressed air, storage in dams, and so on. But none of that is very quick.
Right. And so a quicker solution is needed, right? Yeah, because they're saying they want to cut 2/3 of gas imports from Russia by the end of the year.
Yes, I think in that very short period, it will have to be more gas imports from hopefully the Far East, the Middle East, I mean, and also presumably burning more coal, I'm afraid. Those are short-term solutions which go against particularly the coal climate policy, but
yeah, because a lot of what the EU is talking about is essentially an acceleration of the decarbonisation of the EU, isn't it? It's moving towards renewables, getting people to use less energy. I actually just wanted to pivot to something else that's been coming up over the invasion of Ukraine by Russia, and it's all of the companies we're all of a sudden seeing stopping operations in the country. We've heard from Starbucks now, McDonald's, Coca-Cola. I wanted to ask you, as an industrial expert, why we're suddenly getting all of them making this decision at the same time.
Right. Yes. Well, I think there are a number of potential factors. I mean, one is public opinion. These companies, when we could instance cases, these companies have experienced partial consumer boycotts in various countries at various times. McDonald's, for example, has. It could be public opinion. It could be political pressure. I imagine that President Biden is putting pressure on American companies, such as Coca-Cola. It could be supply chain issues that they're worried. I mean, again, taking the example of Coca-Cola, presumably the syrup comes from the United States, or a limited number of alternatives, and
so we've got a whole confluence of issues coming at once. I'm sorry, Mike Waterson, but we're actually out of time. But thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us on DW Business.
That's fine. Okay.